Hello, everybody. My name is Marcella Hammer. I am the resident unicorn at Palette Community, and this is called Get Your Mind Right. This show is all about and how do we deal with it with our brains, with our human bodies, with all of the skills that we've got. And I'm super excited to introduce our guest today. And by our, I mean my guest today, Kristen Brenner. She's the founder of Integrity Mind Body and a whole bunch of other things as well. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Thank you so much for having me. I'm so excited to be here with you.
I'm excited to have you. And would you mind just tell everybody a little bit about who you are and what you do, other than being an esteemed member of the Palette Writers Club, which you are?
Yes. I love Palette Writers Club. Everyone should give it a try. It's a great release every week. So great way to connect with people. So as you said, I'm the owner of Integrity Mind Body, and I really draw together the kind of work of mindfulness, self-compassion, and embodiment to work with moms to help them reconnect to the joy that really should be parenting. Often we get so caught up in the stresses of what parenting is, and I want to reconnect people back to the joy and the fun of being a parent.
I love that so much. I'm not a biological parent, but I think that there are a lot of themes with that impact us whether we have biological children or not.
Absolutely.
And something else that you have going on is I know you have a workshop coming up this weekend that is not about being a parent, but isn't not about being a parent. Can you talk
Right,
a little bit
right.
more about that?
Yeah. So a couple years ago, I have a dear friend who I've known for many, many, many years named Sarah Sullivan. And a couple years ago, she and I were both going through a divorce at the same time. We were married to different people,
Different people.
and
Yeah,
yeah,
not from
and
each
we
other.
no, not from one another. And we every time we got together, we were talking about our experiences and our struggles as we went through this process of divorce, which it really is this long process. And we kept saying there really should be some help for people going through this. It affects so many people, and it just feels like there's not a lot of help out there in the community. And eventually we realized, oh, we have to do this ourselves because nobody else is doing it. And so, we talked about what we wanted to provide and the ways that we wanted to really build connection for people who are going through divorce. And we finally settled in on really wanting to work with moms in particular who are going through divorce, and how we can come to really see divorce as a beginning rather than an ending, and that there really is this beautiful vast life after divorce, and you can really find some amazing strength and ability to connect with others through the process of divorce. And so we're offering a group. And eventually we'll develop it into a full program. But we have a group this weekend, a support group meeting, and we'll be meeting once a month. So this weekend it will be at Palette in Saratoga, and from 10 to noon. So, and we'll be doing, a couple of different things that we can really just connect with one another around what this process is like, and how we can build strength from this experience.
I think that's so wonderful. And, one of the things I really wanted to discuss with you today was that verb to talk
Yeah,
and how important it is when you go through something traumatic like a divorce or really anything in your life that can be traumatic. We're all like dealing with some major trauma right now, but a
yeah,
divorce is, I can imagine, is a really huge change in the landscape of an individual's life. And I know just the impact in my life. I don't want to talk about the bad things that happen. I do it, but it's so difficult sometimes. And a word that we're having a conversation a little bit before we went live that pops up is the word shame,
yeah,
and that just follows us everywhere like a skunky ass shadow sometimes,
yeah.
and makes it so hard to have these discussions. So it sounds like you've created a really safe space to talk through some of the experiences and emotions.
Yeah. Yeah. And, that's super important to us because you're right. It's not just when you're going through a divorce, but shame is really, it's what's called a universal emotion. Everybody experiences shame. But the problem with shame is that we all think we're the only ones. We all think that our experience is really isolating us from other people, that we're different from everyone else because we have this experience. And it's also what we call a relational emotion because it's always in shame is always around how we think other people see us. We don't necessarily know that they see us that way, but we think they see us that way. And there's always some kind of underlying sense of unworthiness or unlovability. And that is really where shame is born from this sense of, being unlovable. We all are born biologically needing to connect to other people. It is a biological imperative. We can't survive as babies unless we connect to other people. And we'd like to think that as we grow and we age, that we can become very independent and we have this very like rugged individualism in America. But the truth is, we never lose that biological imperative to connect to others. We absolutely have to stay connected. And so shame puts us in a place of disconnection. It's born out of this very innocent place of wanting to be loved for exactly who we are. And yet, in feeling it, we end up feeling disconnected and pulled away from the very people that we love, and we feel unworthy. When we can start to talk about that, the first step is to recognize that it's happening. Because often what happens is we feel ashamed or we feel shame and we cover it up with other emotions like anger or frustration or, depression, anxiety. Most of the time, when we peel back the layers of those things, we often can come back to this sense of we're not lovable for who we are. And what we forget is that that's just a part of us that feels that way. When we're in that, what Brene Brown calls the shame storm, she has the, I mean, that's such a great term because that's how it feels, right? When we're in the middle of that, we feel like that's all there is to us. But it really is just a part of us that kind of follows us along through life. And we have to kind of take it out and take care of it every once in a while. And give that part of us that feels shameful what it needs so that it can kind of come back to be a part of our whole again. And so um, divorce brings up unbelievable amounts of shame for people. There, shame that because ultimately what divorce is that you and this person could not make the relationship work, and there is that underpinning of unlovability. And so it is really incredibly important to connect with others and to talk about it, to come back to connection.
Yes, you have to leave the caves,
Yeah.
guys, the shame cave.
Yes,
And
exactly.
this is the, that's what it always kind of feels like with me. And this is just like me being super candid. We all experience shame. We all do. It's so stinking isolating. It feels like you're the only person that's ever experienced this before, and like you are the worst creature on the planet.
Yeah.
Um, and it's interesting because you mentioned the different ways that people respond to this. And I absolutely, when I start to experience that emotion, I can't get alone enough. I cannot get alone enough. Like as
Yeah.
alone as I can be, I'm like, there's too much. Everything's touching me. Like,
Yeah. Yeah.
and it's so contrary to what can improve the situation, which is the talking about it and the connection that you mentioned.
Yes. Yeah.
Talking is hard though.
Talking is hard, and connecting with that part of ourselves that's in pain is hard. It's incredibly, I mean, we have to be vulnerable in order to connect to that part of ourselves. And we certainly have to let ourselves be vulnerable in order to share that with someone else. That is ultimately what heals shame. Is that there's a saying in the mindfulness world that we feel it to heal it, and that is, of course, what we know about shame, that it can't live in the light, right? And so it is, you're right, shame is very isolating. And most people, when they are in shame, want to pull back from the people around them, from those that they're connected with. I always say that, this is about parenting, but about relationships in general, connection equals protection. This is the way that we actually fortify ourselves and make ourselves stronger, is to connect with other people. And then the other piece that's so important to remember is that shame, these big emotions, when we feel them, we often feel like it's all that there is. They kind of take over, and we lose our perspective, right? We lose the understanding that these emotions can get bigger and then they come back to a smaller place, and then eventually they'll come around again. So we forget that they're really quite temporary, and we can be stuck in the middle of it and think, this is never going to end. This is so hard. I don't want to be here. I don't want to think about it. I don't want to talk about it. I'm going to go to bed. I'm going to stay in bed for as long as I can, or I'm going to disconnect from people, or I'm going to drink that bottle of wine, or, whatever it is that's going to take that feeling away. Ultimately, what heals that feeling is being connected with people who love us for who we are. And, we we can connect with people in that way. We can find people who can love us for who we are. And that is the thing that heals shame, bringing it into the light, bringing it out of that place of darkness and isolation.
And it's hard to remember that feeling when you're in, I,
Yes.
I, I call it the swirl, like when I'm in a swirl.
Yeah.
It's hard to remember that there are people in the world who you can meet who love you, and you haven't even met them yet, and you have no idea who they are or where they are. But the only thing stopping you from meeting them is meeting them and
Yes.
opening yourself up to those experiences. Um, the a divorce makes me think of a parallel in business, which is when you close a business or when a business fails.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that feeling of failure, not to connect everything to business because it allows me to displace my emotions or anything. Um, but I've been through the experience of having to close a business, and I'm sitting here thinking about that as you were talking, and I absolutely did exactly what I did every time I've had these shameful experiences in my life where I'm like, I can't get alone enough. And I just completely disappeared as best I could from the world
Right.
and just tried to make the business disappear. And now I can talk about it. And I find it so healthy to talk about the experiences I had that led to that failure. And it doesn't, like, the word failure doesn't even seem to make sense. It's just like a closing of a door. And then here I am doing amazing things as a result of the closing of this door. And I just see so many parallels in my experience with that to what you were saying about divorce, where it's just like this new beginning
Right.
and it can be so exciting.
Yeah, yeah. So much can come in, our lives are filled with expansion and contraction. That is really what life is. There are moments when it really expands and grows, and we see that in childhood, of course. There's all kinds of expansion. And eventually there has to be some contraction. They're two sides of the same coin. And so when we're starting a business, there's all this expansion, all this growth, all this, we're connecting with people, where we're selling ourselves, we're selling our idea, we're really believe you have to believe in yourself to be in business, and we're just putting that energy out there. And when so happens that the business has to close for whatever reason, that it didn't work, and there are as many reasons as there are businesses. um, you know it is a time of contraction. If we let ourselves kind of take that moment to really feel what's happening, we can recognize that this is a door that's closing. This is one part of our lives that's coming to an end, but it doesn't mean that our life is over. There is always something on the other side. I remember someone once said to me that a lot of our struggle comes from not understanding the season of our life that we're in, that we think we're in summer when maybe we're in winter, and spring is right around the corner, that opening and that expansion. And I love that idea, because we we lose our perspective. We lose our sense of like kind of hold pulling back to see a more global perspective of this is just one piece. This is just one piece of what has happened. This marriage that is over is just one piece. This business that has ended is just one piece. And if we can really take our lessons from what happened, learn the ways in which we might have done things differently or ways in which things were simply out of our control, we can take those lessons and bring them into the rest of our lives. But there is always that opening coming right around the corner.
And I think there's a lot more commonality between people who have experienced divorce than maybe it feels like in the moment.
Yeah.
I, I, yeah.
Yeah.
it, and it just seems like, just, that is something to talk about and something to discover is, are these feelings that we think are only us, this experience that you think is only you, when
Yeah.
in reality, you're creating a space for moms and women to find that commonality of experience and talk through it and make those connections as a mechanism to heal. And I think that's so
Yes.
cool.
Yeah, yeah, it's such an important thing to me in all areas of my life. I know for a fact, even when what I've wanted more than anything is to just shut myself away, when I open to others and really talk about how I'm feeling, what I find is that I'm completely not alone. I might have felt alone, but I'm not. Other people feel just like me. And this is really what we kind of call the informal definition of self-compassion, is understanding that others would feel just like us in the situation that we're in. And when you can get together with people who are having a similar experience to you, you recognize even though the experiences might be quite different, the particulars of each experience might be vastly different, that the underpinning emotions are the same. That there is that sense of isolation, there is grief around the loss of what you thought was going to be. There's this whole kind of shifting and changing of, and you have to live through that moment of not knowing what the future holds, not knowing what is coming, and to kind of be open to, it could be anything. I don't know. And I think for a lot of people there comes the recognition of, I never really knew what the future. We can't predict the future. We all wish that we could. We all wish that we could, say, I know exactly what's going to happen and I have this goal and that goal and I'm going to make it happen. And when we get to do that, that's fantastic. But the truth is, I mean, hey, we've been in this pandemic for 2 years now, right? We cannot predict the future.
No.
It's not possible.
I love the word self compassion.
Yeah.
And I think about also self care and the connection
Yeah.
between self compassion and self care. Is it that you have to have self compassion in order to perform self care in a way that is actually caring?
Yeah, yeah. I see self-care as the action component of self-compassion. So, when we look at the word compassion, it's an action. Right? We think of it as maybe a feeling, and sometimes we think of it as a very soft feeling, but there's always action implied in the word compassion. And so in self-compassion, the self-care is the action. And self-care is broken down into three parts. And this is where that kind of that moment of having to be in the shame cave or go off by yourself can actually be pretty instructive for a time. We tend to stay too long. But the first part of self compassion or self care is understanding how we feel, taking a moment to really tune in to what's really happening inside. What is it that we're feeling inside? And then based on that, how we're feeling, we come to understand what it is that we need. So we answer that. The quintessential question of self compassion is, what do I need right now? So that has to be answered in our self care. And then the third part of self care is giving ourselves what we need. And I always talk about this. It's so important because the idea of self care can make us feel separate from others. Like, those other people have time to take care of themselves. Those other people have money to take care of themselves. Those other people have support and help to take care of themselves. And we can end up getting in this scarcity mindset around self care, which is not, of course, what self care is supposed to be, right?
Yeah,
But
that's
it
when you
can,
have like an explosion, an emotional
yes,
explosion.
exactly, exactly. And so I always talk about self-care. It's not those big things. It's not, taking a 2-week vacation, which is lovely if you can do that. Have fun, enjoy your vacation. But that's not really what self-care is. Self-care is recognizing moment to moment, what do I need right now? Sometimes it's just a hand on the heart. Sometimes it's a walk around the block. Sometimes it's a couple deep breaths.
Mhm.
Sometimes it's, a healthy lunch. Sometimes it's a chocolate chip cookie. Like it can really, there are so many things that self care can be, and it's answered by really tuning inward and saying, what is it that I'm feeling? It's really awakening what we call the interoceptive awareness of what am I feeling inside? And it's physical, emotional, spiritual, it's all of those things connected together.
What I am thinking now is the perception we have that self care is like the antidote to problems we have in our life or like challenging situations. When the way you describe it, it's more like a baseline way of being and a state of mindfulness where if you're operating with self care, it means that you're able to listen to yourself and say, all right, well, I need this cookie. I need a nap. I am not breathing right now in this stressful situation.
Yeah.
My back hurts. I need to sit up.
Yeah.
Am I picking up what you're putting down?
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. It really is in so many ways. It's revolutionary to think of it like that because again, we come back to that idea of disconnection. We get so disconnected from our own internal awareness. We actually have everything that we need, right? We have all the information that we need to do this thing called life. And it's about recognizing what we're feeling, really taking that time so that moment to moment we're meeting our needs so that we don't, and of course, newsflash, we're all going to have those moments where we get completely out of alignment with what it is that we need. Like that's just part of living, right?
Oh yeah, I
But
had one on Friday, this past Friday. There were tears.
oh man, I mean, it happens. Let me tell you. One time, I was really angry with my kids, and I went to in trying to meet my own needs. I said, I'm going for a walk. I will be back in a while. And I grabbed the dog and I went out the door, and I had tears streaming down my face. And I went for a walk. And apparently, my daughter came home and she said, "Where's mom?" And my boy said, She went for a walk." She went for a walk? What? Oh my God, what's so yeah, that, we all are gonna get to that point where things kind of blow up. But to recognize that that's part of what it means to be human, that's actually what connects us to each other. We all will be there. We all will have that experience. So, can we recognize that that's not what disconnects us? That's not what pulls us apart. That's what pulls us together because you had that moment, I've had those moments, and everybody who is listening has had those moments. So, we have to learn hopefully if we're doing self-care right, we're keeping kind of our baseline and we're keeping ourselves a little more even. And when we have those like blips where things just kind of get out of control, we can more easily come back to the baseline because we remember what it feels like. We have this awareness and recognition of this is what it feels like to be cared for in this way. It also makes us better in relationship because if we know what we need, we're far better in every relationship, not just romantic, but in our parenting relationship, in our work relationships, in our friendships, in across the board. It makes us better, more easily able to relate to others.
Oh my gosh. This is just so much fun to talk about. Uh, And I agree. Like, it's so nice having that awareness that we're human beings. We're probably not aliens. It is normal to be a human being that has feelings. It is normal to be a human being that goes through a lot and has shame and gets angry and needs self compassion and self care. Like,
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
audacity.
Yeah, yeah, exactly, exactly. And when we're able to do that for ourselves, it has such a positive impact on the people around us because when people see us doing that, they're like, what kind of superpower does she have going on? I want some of that. And they learn to take care of themselves too. And it really it's interesting because it it is a actually a very biological thing that happens when we manage our nervous system. When our nervous system is in alignment, the people around us will have nervous systems that are in alignment, and we all know this, right? If you come home from work and you're completely stressed out, and whoever you're living with, you slam the door, you're mad, and the person is like, I had a great day, and suddenly their day has now changed and they're not feeling so great anymore, right? And so it can go both ways. We can bring each other into a state of activation where we're feeling very stressed, or we can work together to bring each other back into nervous system alignment, which is what we all really, that's what we all want, is to be aligned in our nervous system, to not feel those physical signs of stress.
I found that as an adult in my 40s, when I start feeling like the physical signs of stress, all I want is something soft.
Yeah.
And I'll say that to my man. I'll say, "Honey,
Yeah.
I need to go get something soft." And sometimes it's like a fuzzy hat or a blanket or something like that. But it's like, for me, it's a way to ground my human body back into a state of more calm, not calm,
Yeah.
but more calm.
Yeah.
And it took me a really long time to figure out how to regulate myself. And I think that's kind of normal too. And like, that's why this is an ongoing conversation with us for our lives, I think.
Yes. Yeah. Absolutely. It is an ongoing conversation because here's the thing. What we need changes over time. What I needed at 20 to feel comfortable and to feel safe is vastly different from what I need now, right? And so
Shocker, we change.
we change, we grow, and we have to be open to that experience so that we can kind of recognize that and be kind and loving with ourselves along the way.
Kristen, you're amazing. Thank you so much for talking with me. And I feel really inspired to go eat a chocolate chip cookie. No, I'm kidding. To
I love
really,
it.
think with self compassion today. And I'm really excited to hear how your group goes on Sunday. And if anyone who is watching is interested, I'm going to add the details to sign up into the comments after our chat is complete so you can go and sign up. And
Awesome.
thank you for being exactly you. You're amazing.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. And thank you for being you. I feel so lucky to have met you in the last year or so. It's really been a great experience. You're a lot of fun. A lot of
Um,
fun to be
Thank
around.
you. We have had some wild rides with our business life and writers club, especially. It's
Yes,
it's a wild ride.
it is a wild ride. I wouldn't want it any other way.
Same. All right, Kristen, I will see you for Writers Club on Saturday. And like I said, I'm going to put all of Kristen's info into the chat. Thank you guys so much. And go practice some self compassion and then eventually self
Yay. Yes. Thank you.